Hello everyone, and you're very welcome to the Wicklow Library Spring into Storytime. We're in Greystones Library. My name is Clodagh and we're going to read a lovely story called Muckeen and the Big Freeze. The words and pictures are by Fergus Lyons, and we'd like to thank O'Brien Press for allowing us to share this book with you today. So this is a little panda book for young readers, and there's a little panda hidden in this book. So you might find the panda as we read the story. So keep an eye on the pages, you might see the panda. Now, it says, can you spot the panda hidden in the story? Okay. Sit back and enjoy. Muckeen loved his bed. It was only a big heap of straw, but Muckeen thought it was wonderful. Early one morning, in the middle of winter, something woke Muckeen. There was something rustling in the straw. He wondered what was making the noise. Muckeen sat up straight in the bed. What could it be? Then he found out. Can you guess? It was a family of field mice. Muckeen knew them well. He was delighted to see them. He loved it when his friends came to visit. It was winter and it was cold outside. The mice had come into the shed to try to get warm. Suddenly, Muckeen noticed snowflakes on the mice. It must be snowing outside, thought Muckeen. He had been looking forward to snow for ages. Yippee! He thought, that first snow of winter. Muckeen jumped out of bed and ran to the window. He stood on a bucket and looked out. Yes! Snow was falling, really heavy snow. As soon as it eased up a bit, Muckeen could go outside to play. He stayed at the window, watching the snow. He was daydreaming about how much fun it was going to be. Muckeen dreamed of skiing down the hill in the big field, but he didn't know how to ski, and he didn't have a pair of skis. Outside, the snow fell on and on and on. Muckeen got tired of waiting. Would it ever stop? A cold wind from the north began to blow into big drifts. Muckeen waited for ages, but it was no good. The snow did not stop. Muckeen got into bed with the mice to wait for the weather to improve, and soon they were all asleep. It was late evening before they woke up again. It was growing dark. Mrs. Farmer still had not brought Muckeen his dinner of sloppy stuff in a bucket. Muckeen was worried. What if there was no dinner at all? That had never happened to him before. Muckeen tried to get a drink of water from the tap in his shed. Nothing came out. The pipes were frozen solid. It was so cold. There was frost and ice on the inside of the window. The day was almost over and the snow kept falling. Now it had turned into a real blizzard. Muckeen tried to push open the door of his shed. It would not budge. The storm had piled snow up against the shed door. Muckeen was trapped. Things were looking bad. Muckeen was shivering and he was hungry. He was cold and he wanted his dinner. Can you shiver? Can you shiver? It was almost dark and Muckeen and the mice heard a scraping sound somewhere outside. The mice heard it first. Scrape, scrape, scrape. And it was coming nearer. Scrape, scrape, scrape. The door began to open slowly. It was Mr. Farmer. He had a shovel in his hand. He had cleared a path through the snow from the farmhouse to Muckeen's shed. Muckeen was as cold as a packet of frozen peas, but he gave a little squeal of happiness. He was going to be okay. Mr. Farmer had come to save him. He was not going to end up like a frozen food in a fridge. Mrs. Farmer arrived then. Her nose and cheek were red and shiny from the cold. She didn't have Muckeen's dinner with her. She was carrying a duvet and a torch instead of a bucket. "This is the worst winter storm ever," said Mr. Farmer. "Oh, it's terrible," said Mrs. Farmer. "I think there will be a big freeze tonight." The weather was too cold to leave Muckeen on his own in the shed. Mrs. Farmer wrapped him in a warm duvet and she put a hat on his head. "Muckeen is very cold," said Mrs. Farmer. "He'll be grand when we get him back to the house," said Mr. Farmer. Mrs. Farmer carried Muckeen all the way to the farmhouse through the blizzard. When they arrived, Muckeen was amazed. The house was full. There were sheep on the stairs, and the horse in the hall, and cows in the kitchen, and chickens on the couch. Look at this picture page very carefully. What do you see? Is that the little panda? Yes, we found the panda. He's on page 43. In front of the blazing fire in the sitting room sat the cat and the dog. They were not pleased. This was their house. They did not want to share it. They wanted it all to themselves. But the other animals were really happy. They were glad that Mr. and Mrs. Farmer had brought them out of the cold. For supper there was a selection of hay, oats and biscuits. And at last Muckeen got a lovely bucket of sloppy stuff. When bedtime came, the animals settled down wherever they were, but not Muckeen. He was Mrs. Farmer's special pet. Mrs. Farmer tucked him up in bed in a spare room. The bedclothes were a bit too tight for Muckeen. He missed his bed of lovely straw. Still, the day had ended well. Outside, the winter storm blew all through the night, and next morning everything looked different. The storm was gone, the sky was blue, and the sun was shining. Deep snow lay everywhere, sparkling with frost. As the animals woke up, the house was full of noise. After breakfast, they all went outside to take a look at the snow. First out the door were the ducks. They hurried down to the duck pond. It was frozen. Their flat feet were perfect for skating on the ice. Muckeen came skipping down the stairs. He was on his way out to play. He saw Mr. Farmer searching under the stairs in the cupboard. Muckeen thought that Mr. Farmer might be looking for field mice. Mr. Farmer was muttering to himself, "I know they're here somewhere." Suddenly, Mr. Farmer gave a happy shout. "Here they are!" He backed out of the cupboard and he had 2 pairs of skis. The skis had been in the cupboard for years. Muckeen could not believe his eyes. Real skis! The farm was covered in deep snow. Skiing would be a good way for Mr. and Mrs. Farmer to get out and about. Mr. and Mrs. Farmer were great skiers when they were younger. They even won gold medals for it. Muckeen jumped up and down with excitement. He wanted to learn to ski, so Mr. Farmer taught him how. Soon he was off on his own, speeding down the hill in the big field. His dream had come true. Muckeen had a great time in the snow. He even made a snow pig. Muckeen thought the big freeze was the best thing ever. Wasn't that a lovely story? So the next time we have snow, maybe you try and build a snow pig rather than a snowman. Bye-bye for now.